Good morning. My name is Dr. Sunday Legbede of Department of Employment Relations and Human Resource Management, University of Lagos. This morning we'll be looking at origin and development of industrial relations. The learning outcomes that is expected students to achieve at the end of this class are: 1. To identify reasons for the emergence of labor during the transition from feudalism to capitalism. Identify characteristics and nature of working conditions during the period of industrial revolution. And lastly, state reasons for the emergence of industrial relations and workplace institutions. These are our learning outcomes, and it is expected that at the end of this lesson, students should be able to identify and state all these outcomes. History of labor and industrial relation. The history of labor can be traced to the period of industrial revolution in the early 19th century, or what we can term as transition from feudalism to capitalism, which was orchestrated by the merchant class. Also, the period of industrial revolution was characterized with the emergence of large-scale industry. This large-scale industry led to the migration of artisans and peasants from rural areas to cities and urban areas across Europe. All the cities in European society then experienced massive movements of people from rural areas to the urban center, and getting onto the urban center, they were engaged in the large industrial setup that were characterized the European society as at then. And the migrants from the rural area were employed as laborers by the owners and managers of the industries. However, unlike in their rural areas whereby they live majorly as farmer, as artisan, and of course their monthly needs were met through their work on the farm, because they work as peasants, they work for feudal lords, and the farm produce were shared into three parts. The feudal lord will take one part, the peasant will take one part, and the merchant will take one part. So it is the part of the merchant that is taken to city that led to the growth of capitalism. So there were double exploitation. So when industrial society emerged, these uh, rural dwellers started moving to the urban center, and on getting to the urban center, the only means of survival is for them to be employed in the industrial society, in the industrial setup. And on getting to work for the faceless employer for the very first time, they realize that the workplace is characterized with certain deprivation, long and unregulated working hours, poor wages, job insecurity, and other vices within the workplace. And because of the fact that they depend solely, no other source of income, when they find themselves in the city, they need to pay rent on like the experience in the rural areas where they are coming from. They need to uh, they need to go to markets. So the cost of living is getting astronomical. So they see the wage employment as a rallying point for them to be able to ameliorate their living condition, their standard of living within the big city. So therefore, this wage employment is not providing that for the workers, and they realize that their survival depends on their wages. They realize that they need to protect their wage employment. So in the early 19th century, therefore, workers started to exhibit out of unionism by coming together to challenge this workplace deprivation in a frontal manner, and that, to some scholars, that led to the emergence of other institutions in industrial relations. Of course, you must understand that there's difference between unionism and trade union. So during the early stage of labor migration, during the early stage of the transition from feudalism to capitalism, workers started to exhibit out of unionism, even though there were no union. It is out of this unionism exhibited by early workers in urban centers in Europe that led to the emergence of other institutions in industrial relations. Even trade union emerged as a result of this out of unionism, collective bargaining, and other employment and work relation practices. So one can conclude that industrialization is rooted in the industrial revolution, that industrial relation emerged during the period of industrial revolution and the spread of capitalism, which later created the modern employment relation practices. This sprawling free labor market and large-scale industrial organization with thousands of wage workers. And as society wrestles with this massive economic and social change, labor problem arises. And what are those labor problems? Low wages, long working hours, monotonous and dangerous work, and abusive supervisory practices. This led to high labor turnover and violent strike, like I said earlier. So, and therefore, the threat of social instability due to the confluence of these events and ideas associated with the rise of democratic government in the Western world of the late 19th and 20th century. Industrialization was therefore a reaction against deplorable working conditions in the 19th century and in the early 20th century. As a result of deplorable situation creating conflict between capital and labor. So one can conclude that industrial relations emerged as a discipline in the 19th and 20th century as a reaction towards deplorable and deprivation of work that characterized the era of industrial revolution and transition from feudalism to capitalism. So we can now conclude that industrial relation arose from the conviction that cordial relationship between workers and employers could be improvised through a combination of certain institutions that later emerged in the workplace. And these institutions are the trade union, collective bargaining, wage determination process, industrial democracy, labor management relation, employee relationship management, and so on and so forth. These are what emerge as a result of the interaction of labor coming to the bar center in search of wage employment and the orientation of the capitalism at that time. Like unlike the Web's idea of uh, trade union, the mass believe that capitalism creates a state of dynamic tension because to them they believe that capitalism is nothing but a process and combination of system of exploitation of the working class.